Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest version of the Current Event Makers. My name is Dave Swirsky. I am a DJ and owner of Expressway Music in New York. We are recording from New York. And I'd like to introduce our guest for this podcast, my good friend and colleague who I have mad respect for, Mr. Darian James. Hi, Darian.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, you were one of the very first guests we had at the original Current Event Makers, and you're the best guest. But
Oh,
I figured
you're kind.
I figured it's a
You're kind.
great time to bring the podcast back, because now with COVID and the hospitality business, everybody's kind of like not knowing where anything is going. And I wanted to have you, I wanted to talk to you about your thoughts on
Sure.
past, present, and future
Yeah,
of the event business, and want to talk about what you're doing
of
and
course.
your vision. So before we get into that,
Yeah.
can you give a little bit of a bio, a little bit about your background and how you started in the event business, and
Sure.
what is your passion for it?
Okay. Well, hi again, everyone. It's such a pleasure, and thank you so much for having me back. I really had a great time the first time I was on the podcast with you. So I'm really excited to be here and share just my thoughts with what's happening in the event world with everyone. So a little about myself. I am originally from the Caribbean, a small island called Montserrat that was destroyed by a volcano, and my family moved to St. Thomas, US Virgin Islands, where we have several restaurants that became our main source of livelihood, as it is a big tourism island, ran by, a lot of cruise ships, and a lot of vacationers come there. So we got into the restaurant business, my family, over 40 years ago. So as a kid growing up, I was always helping out in the restaurant from a very young age, from helping my grandma in the kitchen to, as I became more older and older as my years go by, I started taking on more mature roles with helping out with the events, taking reservations. So by the time high school ended, I was pretty much organizing the events.
You were pretty much
So,
you were a professional,
well, I
really.
mean, by the time I was 18 and graduating from high school, I could have moved directly into a managerial role because of my experience in the day-to-day, being in the restaurant business and over the event portion of the restaurant. So, I mean, I think that was very vital to my success because I really pretty much know the ins and outs from every role, as, a busser, server, reservation is, or I actually help out in the kitchen with my uncle with prepping for the chef for the events. So I've worn many hats over the years leading up to my now profession, which is, a director of catering and events. So when I left the islands to go to college, I actually got a job as a banquet manager at the Sheraton Hotel. So pretty much because of my extensive experience in the hospitality industry, I was able to just go directly into a managerial role. And I've been in hospitality ever since. So throughout my entire um, college years, I was working and going to school. And when I graduated, I then just was already in my role as a catering sales and event
What was
manager.
your what was your major in college?
So I originally went to school to be a pilot, and
Really?
yes. So I originally went to Spartan College of Aeronautics to study my pilot's program,
I didn't know
but
that.
yeah, halfway through that program, 9/11 happened, and then the aviation industry just tanked. So I was working at the hotel as a banquet manager over the events while studying to be a pilot. And then right after that, I just switched to hospitality management because I was already in the field and it just made sense to go that direction.
So
So
did you always have a passion? You must have always had a passion for aeronautic for
I did. When I finished high school, I received two offer letters. One was to join the Air Force, and the other one was to go to college. And my mom was like, "You are not joining the Air Force. You're going to college."
you know,
So that's
Darian, like it's like talking to an onion. Every time you peel it, you find out more about you. I've
I
known you a
know,
long
I
time.
know.
I had no idea. That's a,
Yeah. So given the allotted free time I have now, I actually inquired with an aviation school in Long Island to just to see if I could finish my private pilot's license, which I am in conversations with doing that. So more to come on that, and I will definitely update you once I have all the details.
is there any way to combine the two to get
Yeah,
aviation and catering?
well, you never know. We could host events on jets, on planes, you never know what the future holds.
Right.
People that fly needs to be catered to, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now
So,
we met. Okay, we met at a major where you were the catering manager at a major worldwide hotel chain. Can we mention it? Can we
yes, you can.
okay, so the Sofitel Hotel,
Uh-huh.
which
Yep.
is really one of the biggest chains, correct?
Mhm.
Um, they're just a wonderful company.
Yes.
Um, you've been very good to us, but you are. I've been in the business since 1991. I started my business in 1992. Darian, I think you're the most natural person that I have met in the business. Just like there's the natural, like the baseball player's a natural or a golfer.
Yeah.
You're just a natural person in hospitality,
Thank you.
where it's very. It seems I know it's a lot of incredibly hard work, but it seems to come very easy for you. And your explanation kind of makes sense with it. But you
Sure.
have it's that kind of service with a smile, and it's just very natural the way you orchestrate things.
Yeah. I mean, I think that comes from, again, as I was raised in this industry, it's like second nature to me. So what people might see as polite or genuine or courteous or um, going above and beyond for expectations or satisfying the guests. All of those things to me are just what should be, and those are just natural. So what a guest or client might be overwhelmed or appreciate, for me, that's just the basics of this business.
It's gonna. I'm not kidding when I say this, but I see parallels between a pilot and what you do. It's keeping calm under pressure.
Pretty
And
much, yeah,
and
that's
a lot
true.
of pressure,
That's
and
true.
a lot of
Yeah.
pressure.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
No, it's funny that you brought that up because as a pilot, you have the responsibility of a certain number of people in your hands to make sure from point A to point B they're safe, they have a great experience, and they reach to whatever the end result or destination is. It's the same thing as an event planner or a director of catering or a wedding planner, whatever title, we all have a similar role. You have a certain amount of people in your control from point A to point B,
Yeah,
from the beginning of the event to the end of the event, and you are responsible for that experience for each and every guest.
yeah.
So they kind of do have parallels, as you mentioned, and it's our goal to make sure that no guest leaves unsatisfied. So that is
So,
correct.
okay, so I know that the hotel is undergoing a very big renovation, right? And then um, you were getting, the sales were pretty much up, right? Am I mistaken? Before COVID, they were kind
Yeah.
of,
So, I mean, as the rest of the world
yeah,
probably has experienced, I mean, we were business day-to-day business up until we all receive the same news, right? That things are changing, things have changed. This is something that's going to affect our future moving forward. So for us, it was business as usual up until the day of when we were told that we can't do anything moving forward, as the rest of the world, because it was protecting the safety of everyone,
Yes.
people who are traveling, people who are locals. We wanted to make sure no one was put in a situation where their health will be jeopardized, um, being exposed to whatever,
Right.
was out there at the time, because we were all unclear as to what this was. No
Yes.
one knew the extent of which this disease would take over the world, pretty much.
Yes. Yep.
So yes, it was business as usual for us, and we just had to navigate moving forward with that, like everyone else, just putting the safety of our guests and employees first.
So what is your status right now with the hotel? What happened in that interim?
So, I mean, get the hotel, as every other hotel in the city, New
Yep.
York City, was closed
Yep.
because of the lack of tourism
Yep.
and travelers, and there was not really much going on. Like, people are being more cautious with regards to being exposed. So, like every other hotel, we didn't see the numbers that we um, anticipated.
Right.
So that put us in a position to protect, the hotel, because we can't necessarily operate without, guests to take care of.
Right.
So the hotel was closed, as many other hotels were, and they are currently still closed at the moment. And I can't speak too much because as of um, September 30th, I was separated from the hotel, given that there isn't a definite date of reopening at this time.
Yeah.
And it was amicable separation.
Yeah.
Given that I completely understand the situation, given that there's nothing happening,
Right.
it's just the decision that needed to be made at this time. And in the future, once things change for the better, then we will revisit, and then we can proceed moving forward based on whatever decisions are made then.
So, Darian, you're a very life affirming person. I've known you over this past maybe 6 or 7 years.
Mhm.
Um, and I know this whole industry has kind of been just shaken. The whole world has been shaken by
Sure.
this COVID. Um, one of the reasons I wanted to have you also on the podcast is because I wanted to get your advice, and maybe you could share advice of an event professional like yourself. What do you do when this happens? When something like this pandemic happens, and then maybe a reinvention of, like, what is your outlook on that, and what is your prediction of the event business in New York going forward? I know it's a very big question.
It is. It is. It's a big question, but it's a great question because we're all living it. We're experiencing it right now, and we have to all prepare for what's to come, what
Yeah.
we're dealing with now, and what's to come in the future. And my outlook on the whole industry, especially the hospitality industry, from event planners to restaurant owners to anything to do with anyone catering to an audience or guests. I think because current moment we are in a situation where our hands are pretty much tied. It's not our responsibility to make the decision of when we can proceed.
Right.
We're following the authorities,
Yeah.
and we are respecting to make sure everyone's health is put first and foremost.
Right.
But in the interim, I still think my advice or what my best practices are at this time is staying in contact with my clients, staying in contact with my peers, just sharing and understanding best practices during this time. You know, there's a lot of different situations given different cities, different states, different countries. There are a plethora of platforms where us as industry folks can, you know, unite to empower each other with best practices of how to proceed. For example, in China, they're ahead. So there are hotels that have reopened,
Wow.
and they are doing practices now that they're learning from daily that
Wow.
they can share with us that are preparing for reopening,
Wow.
that so we don't repeat mistakes, right? So we
Right.
want to understand, what did you do? How did you move forward? What were some best practices or experiences that you can share so we can avoid any, you know, mishaps that might
Sure.
come our way? And you know, there are a lot of, for locally here in New York, there are a several groups and several, I would, my advice would be for the vendors is as peers, even though some are competitors, but we're all one industry,
Yeah.
and no matter what, at the end of the day, we need the business to come back, and we need to work together to speak to the local authorities to understand what is it we need to do to help this move forward.
And what is your, it's hard to make a prediction when everything's kind of up in the air, but what's your thought about the business coming back to New York, and what time frame?
Yeah, so New York is a strong city. I mean, it's a very vibrant city, no matter what. We've been through, look at 9/11.
Yeah.
Look, that was traumatic and a
Yeah.
devastation for the entire country, but for New York itself,
Yeah.
we were able to rebuild, unite, come back, and conquer and move forward.
Yeah.
So I believe that we can definitely do that again. It will take some time, given that now the tourism and the hospitality industry were hit the hardest.
Yeah.
Once, you know, travel slowly reunites and you know, travelers start to revisit the city, it is us as an industry to do whatever we can to go above and beyond to reassure the world that New York is back and New York is ready, and we are bigger and better than we were before. And you know, as industry folks, there are things, there are a lot of reasons why travelers come to New York. People come for conferences, people come for concerts, for Broadway,
Yeah.
for hotels, for the attractions of the city. So as a city, we need to unite and put a very positive forefront to make sure that that assurance is going out worldwide,
Yeah.
that we're back whenever that time does come.
Yeah.
Right now we're still waiting for a vaccine, we're still going through the motions of dealing with the coronavirus, but once we are given the thumbs up regarding, best practices are put forward and vaccines available, and you know, the city is reopened and restaurants and Broadway and hotels are back up and running, it's our duty as an industry to make sure we share with the world that we are ready to go. And time frame for that, I mean, I can't say. I mean,
I know. I know.
that's
I
a very
know.
broad question. I mean, I really can't tell you a time frame, but hopefully sooner than better is my goal.
Absolutely. One of the things I fear with this pandemic is losing the Darian James of the hospitality business, because when it comes back, you got to have the best people to take care of the guests. It sounds funny,
Yes.
but there is a diaspora going on now.
It is.
With everything closed and people are like looking out
Of
to
course.
do other things. So it's important,
Yeah, no, that's true. And it's very sad, you know, I mean, it's an uncontrollable situation. And we still, as human beings first, we have families, we have colleagues, friends, we need to take care of ourselves and then be able to take care of our family and each other, right? Given that the industry is down, we still need to survive. We still need to provide. We
Yeah.
still need to take care, nourish, lead, direct, raise our kids, families. We still have a responsibility as a human being
Right.
before, our professions are brought back into this. We have to take care of our homes first.
Right.
So yes, even though the industry is down, we still have to provide. So a lot of professionals have taken other avenues of ways and means to provide for themselves and their families.
Yep.
But in our hearts, this is what we love. This is what we thrive to do. This is who we are.
Yeah.
And when things are back, we'll be back. It's like riding a bike. You never forget, right?
That's what I
You'll
love
be
doing.
back
Yes.
back at it, right up front and center. Because no matter what anyone does in this time right now to survive, the passion is still there
Yeah.
for us as event professionals to satisfy the guests, go above and beyond, to cater to
Yes.
nurture. That's who we are. And you can't just switch and turn that off. So,
Completely agree. I completely agree. You know, I've had my business since I said 1992. So it's 28 years.
wow.
And the first 5 years was, the first 5 or 6 years, it was a struggle. I was getting my name out there and getting better at my craft and everything. But when COVID hit, okay, the brakes go on. So what I've been doing, there's kind of a surrealistic part of this. I have been literally 3 days a week making cold calls. And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And it's nerve-wracking, and it's not something I was used to doing for many years because the business was coming, it was always coming. But I feel like in this time, it's good to get better at the things you're not necessarily that good at.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting thing. I'll go and knock on a door, and you read a little thing, please buzz, and you buzz, and somebody comes out like, okay, what's going on, right? And I tell them, I said, I'm just kind of like want to be on your radar.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we're not doing events right now. So I said, just when events come back up, love to work with you.
Of course.
And the
No,
reason
and I
I
think
mention
that's
it,
important.
okay.
No, that's definitely important. Again, you want to stay as fresh and as at the front of your clients, past, present, and whoever's to come in the future. You want to be the first person they think of whenever the needs are, right? Because even though there are not a plethora of events happening as been happening in the past, there are still intimate events that are happening, right?
Yeah.
It might be a smaller number, but there are some events that are still happening, whether it's in someone's penthouse for 5 to 10 people or someone's rooftop for
Yes.
15, that social distance. So
Yeah.
I mean, there are things that are still happening that you can still, make your company, your brand present in front of these guests, because then they'll remember that experience, and that's what really will be spoke about in the future or discussed. Because during COVID, I had a little brunch and David came over and he was so nice to play some music for our guests. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the conversations that will happen. I mean, me now, how I'm trying to take advantage of this free time that I have, given that I'm not really focusing on a lot of events, is, just staying educated, like putting myself in uncomfortable situations, as you mentioned. I stay in contact with clients, like clients that
Great.
maybe have had a bad experience or clients that I've worked with for years. So
Great.
no matter what, we're all going through this together.
Yeah.
And it's just like making sure that they're able to relate to you, not as a event person, not as a DJ, but just as a person. Because no matter what, when the lights are off, you're a human being. It's human to human, right?
Sure.
And that's what's more relatable. Like my kids are home and I have no one to help me teach them, and I still need to work. But you need to be able to have just a conversation with your clients so that you're relatable. You understand where they are right now in this time. No one's really thinking about events. No one's thinking about the future.
Yeah.
They're just thinking about now. My job has been cut in
Yeah.
half. My kids are at home, and I have no resources to do whatever I need to do. It's like making yourself available. It's like you can always call, you can ask, let me know if you need someone to come and help in your yard for yard work. Me, I'm utilizing myself not as an event planner
But as
or
a human being,
professional,
right,
but
right.
just as a human being, like because we're going through this together, and
Sure.
some people just don't have the resources to pay for things like they did in the past. But at least if I can give a lending hand,
Yeah. Yes.
that's what would be memorable in the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Darian did come over. I had a broken gate, and he was able to screw that, fix me. That saved me $300 that I didn't
Oh,
have
nice.
to hire a handyman. This is how you stay at the forefront with your clients moving forward. It's not
That is
about trying to set yourself up for business, right? But just be able to relate to them to where they are now.
right, right, right. I have a couple of questions based on, well,
Sure.
based on what we're talking about. Um, First of all, are you getting so is the Sofitel still getting calls for like bookings in the future? And if they are, how does that relate with you? Because you were doing those bookings.
Yeah. So you see, the funny thing is, I mean, I really can't answer regarding the Sofitel anymore, as I'm no longer officially with them as of September 30th. But
Right.
yes, I can imagine that there are still calls. I mean, up until my time there were clients that were booked for next year, wedding conferences. Those things are still planned to happen.
Have they called you since then with any questions and already?
During my time, I had conversations with my directors.
Sure.
Yes, I mean, as I was the person over these events and with the working with these clients, and these are my clients are like my babies. They know
Darren,
me,
Darren,
they
your client,
recognize me,
the
they
ones that you referred as me as the DJ or entertainment, these clients, there's a special bond that you have, like almost that I haven't seen. They love you. No, they
well,
really feel like you're like a family. You really feel it.
it's true. I mean, I do admit that is correct, because with my clients, I develop, you get to know, you can't treat business as a transaction, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You get to know who you're working with, you understand their needs and their expectations,
yeah.
and with that you're able to connect and work together and proceed to execute at the best of your ability,
Yeah.
right? And during that process you develop this connection, because they're able to relate to you because you understand who they are, and with that it just has a deeper connection or bond that really sets you apart from the other average person, right?
Right, right, for
I mean,
sure.
I have wedding couples, I have clients. I mean, now, even though I am not with the hotel, I've worked with so many clients that they're on my personal cell phone, and I've been to their homes, I've been to their events personally outside of the hotel, and we stay in connection. They ask me advice, because it's that relationship that was developed then, that even though there's a separation now, the connection is still there.
Right, right, sure. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Mhm.
So, just on a personal note, for me, I'm asking for advice when I'm making these calls. When I'm going, um, I'm literally just knocking on these doors. Now, if you're in your office during COVID,
Mhm.
doing plans, would you see somebody off the street without an appointment?
I would not. And the reason being, right? So I would not advise to go knocking on doors, because one, no one wants to speak to a stranger at this time, right? Because nobody knows what your status is, where you've been exposed to. It's a phone call is well received versus an in-person experience, right?
Sure.
At this time.
Yeah.
In the past, it was the reverse. Someone would prefer to see you and have a connection
Yeah.
versus cold call, and they'll pretty much wouldn't even take the call. They hang up, right?
Right. Right.
Because we
Right.
did prospecting at work as well, and prospecting is a part of how you get new clients. You
How would
cold
you do it?
call.
Can you tell me? So, as a working in a major hotel, how did you do prospecting?
So there are different ways, there are different platforms out there now. There are lists that you can get from different companies that provide that information based on zip code, based on building address, based on who's in the building, brands, business like that. There are referrals that you get from clients that you've worked with in the past.
Sure.
There are so many different ways, but what the thing is, you want to cold calls, or no one ever likes to do those, because out of 10 calls, you probably make one connection.
But that's not bad, right? Just one is not terrible, right?
One is not terrible, but I mean, if you're doing that for hours, it could get very daunting. Like it get misleading. You don't necessarily. It's
You
not
know,
a good
Darian,
experience to be told no so many times.
Darian, I don't get right. I don't know if you remember, but you and I met. I was with my lovely, amazing assistant, Charissa, and
Yes.
it was a cold, rainy day, and there was a bridal show at the Capital.
Capital. Yes,
Capital.
that's correct. Yeah.
And we were talking with it. We're not going. How many times do we make a connection with somebody at these shows?
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was, but we both said, you know what, let's just do it. We took a bus down there. It was raining. It might have been snowing. We're walking around and we're saying, you see, it's going to be another one of these shows. And then you're sitting at this table, and we start talking, and we both look and say, this is a great guy. I got to tell you, yeah, no, we were so impressed with said, this is a breath of fresh air. And then, and then the rest is history. I mean, you've been a close,
kept a connection. Yeah.
Great connection and a great friend to us. So that actually helped me when I'm making these cold calls. I think about that. I said, if I didn't go that day, if we didn't go, we wouldn't have this great guy in our life, this Darian, So that's the thing that gets me, that inspires me sometimes to say, just get in the car and just do it. There might be.
No, that's the thing. We never really like to do these things, but they're important, right? Because you never know who you'll meet. You never know what connections you'll make and where that would lead to in the future. I mean, look at us now. It's now 6-7 years later, and I have to say, between both of us, we've passed business to each other, and we've worked with each other with different clients. We've created some memorable moments.
Absolutely.
And I look forward to doing that again in the future.
Yes,
sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And listeners, you too could meet a Darian James. just give yourself the opportunity. Be open to it.
Yeah.
Anyways, Darian, I love you, and I definitely want to talk to you apart from the podcast, so we could even catch up some more.
Yes.
Thank you for being on the podcast. You look great. You sound great.
Thank you.
And let's keep on keeping in touch.
Of course. I mean, just leaving on a note, I think if everyone just keep a positive attitude, you never know who you'll come across, what day they're going through, but just do something good for someone, and you never know how that will be done back to you in return. We're all going through this together, and no one is obsolete from this virus. So you never know what can happen at any moment. So do the right thing at all times.
The best possible advice. I mean, I got chills when you said that.
Oh, thank you.
Darian, thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, Dave. And please give my regards to Carissa and everyone else. And
I sure will.
I look forward to seeing you on the dance floor somewhere.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.